Okay, welcome to the iPad Podcast, episode 56, this Memorial Day weekend. This is Sunday, May 29th, and this is Lex at the MaxFuture.com website. And there's, of course, a lot of iPad news to discuss. And also, I'm going to be going over various iPad apps. It seems like we're coming out with a whole bunch of iPad apps. I think Apple totally has over 500,000 iOS apps, mainly iPhone's apps, but also ones that can play on the iPad. So again, this is a commercial-free and chit-chat-free podcast, and let's get into it. It should be interesting. Okay, so the first story of this Memorial Day weekend is really about having another option other than the iPad. Now, I love my iPad, and there hasn't been any real good competitors to iPad. But according to Engadget, the biggest threat to Apple could come from who else but its longtime rival, Microsoft. And according to Engadget, in a story on May 26, 2011, Windows Tablet OS preview coming next week. And what the article says is that next week, I guess there's an all things digital appearances by Microsoft. All Things Digital is Walt Mossberg of the Wall Street Journal's conference that has every year. And it basically says that Microsoft plans to, quote, flaunt the much anticipated UI, that's user interface, of a tablet iOS or OS, possibly at upcoming appearances at All Things Digital and Computex. And supposedly the showcase is set to run the touchscreen-enabled software on a Tegra-equipped machine. And it also goes on to say that there had been previous reports of a June demo. So who knows, maybe Windows will finally come out with something that is in the tablet space that could possibly compete with the iPad. I don't think they're going to be able to come up with anything successful because if you've noticed anything, Microsoft keeps stumbling. So, we'll just have to keep an eye out tuned for that. Okay, now everyone knows that Apple tries to keep its future development plans for the iPad secret, but it might have to show Samsung any future version of the iPad 3 that's going to come out. And that's because Apple sued Samsung for copying the iPhone and other devices. And Samsung has sued back. And Samsung is now seeking access to, to the development of the iPad by Apple. And that comes on the heel of Apple getting access to unreleased Samsung hardware in its patent suit. So there's this back and forth between Apple and Samsung, and their lawyers may get peeks at their future products. Now, Apple pointed out to the court that the Samsung Galaxy Tab was recently given out to developers by Google, so it's sort of already public. But Samsung wants a peek at the iPad 3, which is in development probably for next year. So who knows? Maybe these lawyers will get a peek and maybe there'll be a leak. But, it's a fight among the gladiators. Now, my iPad 2's been running like a charm, but there is a report out this week from Cult of Macs that some people are complaining about the antennas in the iPad 2's. And this is what the article says. The placement of the cellular and Wi-Fi antennas between the iPhone 4 and the iPad 2 couldn't be more different, but that's not stopping a small but vocal minority of iPad 2 owners to cry about an AntennaGate of their own. And it says that a number of owners are reporting that their Wi-Fi signal is dropping when they put their hand over the iPhone's speaker grill. It goes on to say some users say their devices lose radio signal completely, while others merely report a drop of a couple of bars. And one reader said in this article, seems the iPad 2 has AntennaGate also. I've noticed this for a while. If I hold the iPod 2 on the sides, my Wi-Fi drops to 2 bars, but when I move my hand away from the left side, it speeds up again. So I don't know. I think this is somewhat bogus, or maybe it's just for a few iPads, because I've had no problems holding my iPad 2 and seeing any, antenna problems. So I'm going to try to recreate what they're saying in this article, but I think this is just a couple of isolated events, because it would be much more widely, stated if there was truly a problem. And frankly, I use my iPad 2 heavily and hold it in all sorts of ways, and I haven't noticed any problems either on 3G or Wi-Fi, so I would not be alarmed by this. Now, it's kind of ironic that Samsung wants to get a peek into the iPad 3, because other parts of Samsung actually may be supplying the screen for the next version of the iPad 3. And there's an article in Asia News Network that came out on May 26 that says that Apple and Samsung are in talks over displays for iPad 3. And in it, it says that Chief Operating Officer for Apple, Tim Cook, discussed adopting Samsung's AMOLED display technology for tablet PCs during his visit to South Korea. And the quote from the Korea Herald says, quote, Apple wants to tap into Samsung's AMOLED technology for an upgraded version of the iPad 2 considered as many as the iPad 3 that is likely to be launched toward the end of this year. So that's interesting. It wouldn't be like an iPad that would come out a year after the iPad 2, but maybe the fabled iPad that's going to come out in the fall. So it goes on to say that Samsung does not yet use AMOLED displays for its tablet PC, the Galaxy Tab, but its Galaxy S2 smartphones are filled with the Super AMOLED display. So that would be an improvement if you can get the AMOLED display. It's supposed to be much higher quality, and I think eventually Apple's going to get such a display, since that's the way that a lot of the technology is going in terms of display. It is kind of ironic that Samsung, which is being sued by Apple and countersuing, would be the supplier. But then again, other people have reported that Samsung in Korea is so massive, it has different companies or divisions, and the divisions really, operate independently. So the component manufacturers actually make other parts of Samsung bid on the components with its competitors. So we'll have to see, but look, obviously something different is going to happen in terms of displays in the next version or the version after that of the iPad. Okay, so if you're going back to school, or you have a kid who's going back to school and are starting to think about what to get to the fall in terms of a computer, like a laptop, like a MacBook Pro or MacBook Air, and you're also interested in the iPad, you maybe should hold off a little bit, because the website, the Boy Genius Report, reports that Apple may announce a back-to-school special where you get $200 credit or $200 off an iPad or a free iPod Touch if you buy a Macintosh. And this is in a story that came out on May 27th in Boy Genius Report, and it says, one of our Apple sources has informed us that they've been hearing Apple's yearly back-to-school special will be announced at WWDC next month. We have been told Apple will continue to offer educational discounts on computers and either a free iPod Touch or $229 toward the purchase of any other iPod. Our source also let us know that there might be something new in the works as well. They heard it's possible Apple might offer students up to $200 for an iPad with the purchase of a new Mac. Now this is actually huge. This would probably spur on a lot of iPad purchases. And frankly, I think the best combination for a student is to get an iMac, because they're very powerful, have a lot of storage, and you have a great screen, and then you get a iPad with the iMac. So in other words, couple an iMac with an iPad, and I think you've got horsepower in the iMac with mobility in the iPad. So, that announcement could come at WWDC, which is not next week, but the week after. Now, regarding that rumor that Samsung is going to be supplying AMOLED displays to Apple, there was a counterpoint rumor to that, sort of disputing it. And this appeared in electronista.com on May 26. And here's what they said. They said that there are a number of major show-stopping flaws in the rumor, and they can explain why the iPad is likely to keep using LCDs for some time. That's the current version of the screen of the iPad. And what Electronista said is the first and easiest explanation to offer is that Samsung itself won't make AMOLED tablets this year. Samsung always reserves its best technology for its own devices. At times it even does so at the expense of its partners. And it goes on to say it forced HTC to switch to LCD after it wanted to reserve what little AMOLED production it had for the Galaxy S and Wave, and which is a good point. Then it goes on to say, more importantly, the question remains, what, if anything, Apple would gain from moving to AMOLED quickly? Many expect Apple to move to a Retina display-like resolution for the next iPad. Samsung hasn't shown any AMOLED screen at that resolution, so Apple would at best be getting slightly better color and contrast. So that's also a good point, because Apple's under pressure to have a higher pixel concentration in the iPad, and if AMOLED supplied by Samsung can't provide it, Apple's probably not going to go to that. Electronista goes on to say Samsung may have even reinforced notions that Apple will stay with LCD. At the Society for Information Display Conference, it showed a 2,560 x 1,600 tablet LCD that just wouldn't be possible with AMOLED in the short term. An iPad 3 would need it recut to fit the exact size and resolution it wanted, but unlike with the organic technology, such an option is more realistic. So this, I think Electronista makes really good points. Frankly, I don't really care. AMOLED's eventually going to come out at some point, and it's going to be higher pixel at some point. But I think Electronista is right. Apple's going to care more about higher pixel concentrations in the iPad than switching from LCD to AMOLED. Okay, so sales of the iPad have been in high demand, and they may continue to be in high demand, if not really high demand, because they've recently gone on sale in Moscow, in Russia. And 9to5Mac had a video on its site that's showing, I guess, iPad 2s going on sale in Moscow, and really long lines. And according to the site, one retailer was, selling the iPad, they're reselling them for $1,200 to $1,500, depending on the configuration. That's in the black market. So, look, the iPad is slowly making its way around the world, and it's going to have, I think, huge impact on Apple's earnings in the future. Okay, so as some of you may have heard, there was a tragedy at the production facilities for Apple that is at Foxconn's plant in China, and there was an explosion that killed several people, but it's also a plant that supplies iPad-related supplies. And there's a story out that says that in MacRumors on May 24th that says the explosion creates potential iPad production loss of 500,000 units. Now that's significant but not devastating for Apple. Apple's expected, to sell in the coming year something like 30 million units. Last year, Apple sold in 9 months 15 million units. So, it's, the important thing is, look, people died, and that's what's really tragic here. Whether there's a delay in the iPad, it's not as significant as human life. But Apple's a big company, and Apple will find a way to get the production up. Now, have you found yourself at times questioning how good the user interface is of an app that you're using on the iPad, or how good the website is of a website you're seeing on the iPad? Well, apparently a study was done by the Nielsen Norman Group, a usability study for iPad apps as well as browsers on the iPad or websites on the iPad. And the bottom line is that there are many apps that still need work on their user interface. And this report was mentioned by TUAW.com in an article on May 27th, 2011. And basically, the same group, Nielsen Norman Group, did a usability study last year on the iPad apps, not long after the iPad first came up. And so a year later, they've done a follow-up study. And the bottom line is, according to TUAW, while most apps have made big strides in usability, many of the apps covered in the study still had suboptimal user interfaces that in many cases seem to sacrifice ease of use in favor of good looks. Overall, the biggest UI problem present in the studied apps was inconsistent or obscure navigation controls. So that's interesting. I mean, I do find that, things vary from app to app, and sometimes you don't know where to look, to get to the settings. Sometimes the settings are in the settings of the iPad as opposed to the settings when you open up the app. And everything is sort of different in flipping through. And for me, it's mainly in magazines and newspaper apps that I see a complete difference in UI design. Now, it goes on to say that participants were also successful in completing assigned tasks in mobile Safari, but when asked to complete the same tasks in a standalone iPad app, participants failed to complete tasks a third of the time. And it goes on to say participants weren't iPad newbies either, having owned the device for a minimum of 2 months. This shows that many apps still have a long way to go in crafting UIs that are accessible and comprehensible to all users. So it's interesting. Apparently, they tested people by putting the same content on a website, and people had an easier time on the iPad doing it through the website. It goes on to say, in terms of website performance in mobile Safari on the iPad, the study's authors note that, quote, the content is readable, but the links and widgets are too small to touch reliably. According to research, the target size for a tappable area should be no smaller than 1 square centimeter. Anything smaller than that size makes it difficult to interact with a link or object, and it can even lead to tapping another object completely by mistake. So this is a really good point. I think people designing websites for iPad have to go out of their way to make the specifications so that they work well on the iPad. Now, one of the things that I noticed, I recently purchased the Mac app called Hype, which has been very popular in the Mac App Store, and it's a $29 app that allows you to create HTML5 animations on the Mac. HTML5 is essentially the way you write like a website now. But what's really interesting is in the templates for creating your projects, you can create, you have different size websites or catered to different devices, and the Hype app has scores of templates for default sizes for your site. And what's interesting is they have defaults if you want your website to be for the iPad or the iPhone. And I think this is really smart of Hype, this application, because I think people who want to make websites for the iPad should really go out of their way to make it look just like the you'd want it on the iPad. Anyways, so it's interesting. I do think there are still challenges in UI design, and in this article in TUAW via Ars Technica makes that clear. Okay, so the iPad has been very popular, and I think a lot of people who've been historically Windows users have been purchasing iPads. And there's an article out in Cult of Mac which says that there's evidence out now that the iPad is causing Microsoft Windows sales to shrink for the first time ever. And the article is based on a Business Insider article which came out with a chart. And the chart shows basically consumer PC growth and for Windows. And Windows Vista was growing, in 2007, 2008, growing at 20%, 24%. And then with Windows 7, it grew in December 2009 at 33%, in March 2010 at 37%. But this is the first quarter where Windows 7 growth has decreased. And so this is and it apparently started decreasing in the month of March 2010, the month Apple introduced the original iPad. So one securities analyst at Citigroup, Walter Pitchard, says, that this could be relating to the iPad going on sale. I mean, do you think it's a coincidence that just when the iPad comes out, then Microsoft goes on a sort of nosedive in terms of Windows sales? I don't think so. I think a lot of people, buy Windows computers, particularly on the low end, because they're looking for a cheap computer that can get them on the internet, that gives them email, that gives them some games. And, if you're looking at buying a $500 PC or a $500 iPad, don't you think a lot of people are going to buy the iPad instead of the $500 PC? Because most people just need, a computer device for, sending emails, surfing the web, playing some games. And frankly, you can do a lot more than with an iPad if you're a consumer of content and a casual creator of content on the iPad than on a PC. Okay, so let's discuss some new iPad apps that you might want to check out, or ones that have been significantly upgraded. One free iPad app that I would recommend, because it's free and fun, is something called MusicWall HD. And it's by someone named Matthew Gao. And basically, this is what it does. It randomly loads music from the internet, and it has a very simple user experience that even a child can use, according to the site's description, and it works fine while in the background. And so basically, it's sort of like a music playing app that has a wall of music, and it gives you little screenshots of the music that you're going to have in little tiles. And, to the extent there's any criticism by people, it's just that it's very random. So you don't really, can choose what you're going to listen to, but it's free. And so what do you have to lose by using it? It's a free app that basically just plays music randomly from the internet. So check it out. Okay, so if you're into sort of adventurous, cutting-edge apps for the iPad 2, you might want to check out an upgraded app that was on the iPhone and has now been upgraded to work on the iPad 2, called CollabraCam. And currently it's on sale for $6.99. I guess its regular price is $9.99. And basically, this is really cutting-edge stuff. And so if you're sort of interested in exploring the boundaries of what a device like the iPad 2 can do, you might want to get CollabraCam. In a nutshell, this CollabraCam app, which you can put on iPhones and iPad 2s, essentially allow multiple movie camera recording from an iPhone or an iPad, and then you have it all controlled by the Director program, which let's say would be on your iPad or iPad 2. So let me tell you again what this means. So the concept here is that you have a crew, and the crew has an iPhone or an iPod Touch and iPad 2 cameras, and you've got the Director app on yours, and you can actually send your crew out at different angles, filming at different angles, and then in the Director app of CollabraCam, which is on, let's say, your iPad, you can choose which clips you want and which clips you're going to select. And ultimately, all the clips will come into CollabraCam. So it's a way to have sort of collaborative movie production. And the features include a user guide, direct a multi-camera video on any iOS device over Wi-Fi. So you basically need to have like a common Wi-Fi Now, if you don't have your own Wi-Fi, handy, because let's say you're in the field and you don't have a Wi-Fi, handy, well, you can get CollabraCam on the go with something called Mobile Hotspot, a battery-powered wireless router that creates an ad hoc coded wireless network. So there are ways to set up a wireless network. I wonder if you have enough bandwidth, if you jailbreak the iPhone, to turn that into a Wi-Fi hotspot for it to work. All the cameras to work through that Wi-Fi. But this is really cutting edge stuff, because the idea is that you can connect multiple cameras together and record them and stream on the fly to this program. So you can record from one camera while placing another camera on standby. You can send the camera move or angle cues to camera operators. You can save a session with automatically generated credits. You can resume a saved session with the same crew or a different one. And you can rough export, you do a rough cut movie export at 640 x 480, 480 x 320, or 192 x 144. You can export a video clip to the camera roll to edit in the video editing app, and you can save video clips via file sharing in iTunes. And then the camera operator features, remember, like one camera will be the director and then some other cameras will be the operators. You can operate a camera with an iPhone, iPod Touch, or iPad 2. You can get notifications from the director of standby or recording status. You can have the camera move or angle cues to instruction from the director. And the iPhone 4 flash may be used as a light on camera. And the clips are saved to the director, saving space on cameras. So this is really wild if you think about it, because you could have, I guess, 3 or 4 cameras that are connected to your iPad. Your iPad acts as the director app, and the other cameras stream to them. But the wild thing is that you can send remote cues to the different camera operators. Now, I'm going to check this out and see how well it works and report back on you. But I think, this is, again, one of the more cutting-edge apps. I would only get this if you're really into movie recording and are adventurous and want to check out something very cutting-edge, because, there are going to be issues here, because they're sending the streams via Wi-Fi. What if the Wi-Fi signal degrades? So it's not going to be perfect, but you got to give kudos to this developer, Apptopus, because this is really innovative and very cutting edge. Okay, so if you're looking to, for a sort of pretty puzzle game on the iPad, there's a new app that costs $1.99 called Obecolo, Obecolo. And essentially, it looks like it came out of Japan, and a lot of the sensibilities of it and the artistic design are kind of, Japanese groovy. That's how I would describe it. So basically, it's a puzzle game that has cute graphics by Japanese illustrator Obitomo. And the way you play it is you spin the 9 cubes in each puzzle to match their patterns. And once you match all 16 patterns in the puzzle, you can obtain a cute wallpaper for the iPhone or iPod Touch. So it's compatible with the iPad, and it also works on the iPhone. And, if you want, it says here, who is Obitomo? Since her school days, Obitomo is Tomako Okabe, is an illustrator and animator. She is best known for her kids' cartoon, Obitomo Gakuen, aired weekly on Japanese national broadcast TV education. So, this is somebody who appears to have significant credentials. And it really looks beautiful and pretty. And I think your kids would really like it in terms of, in terms of a puzzle. So check it out. Okay, so another music app that you might want to check out that just came out on May 26 is a free app and it's got a very easy name. It's called Hound, and it's by SoundHound Inc. And so you know those apps that where you can have your iPhone or iPad listen to music and it'll tell you what the music is. Well, this one's a little different. What Hound is a voice search. You basically speak into it what kind of music you're looking for, and it quickly, basically figures out what you're saying. So, basically you just speak the name of an artist or band or the title of a song, and instantly you get access to song previews, lyrics, album art, videos. You see the artist's biography. You get album information, tour dates, and more. So, it's a free app, and it works on iPhone, iPod Touch, and iPad, and it's just another way to find music. It seems to have, pretty simple but nice interface and gets you the information you want. The reviews so far, the few that are in there in the store, are positive. So again, what do you have to lose? It's free. It's called Hound. It came out on May 26, and I suggest you check it out if you're into music. Okay, so, you might like your Safari browser on the iPad, but you might want to check out a different browser. Well, the venerable web browser Opera has revamped their mobile browser, Opera Mini Web browser, and a new version of it came out with a redesign of its interface, and it's a free app, so you might want to check it out if you're looking for another browser to use on your iPad. And so it's called Opera Mini Web Browser, and so here's what's new in it. The big thing is that it really has improvements in its speed and data savings, and now it's optimized for all iOS devices. It includes an updated design with a new look to it, and it has super smooth pinch to zoom and panning. It has support for iPhone 4 Retina display, iPad, and iPad 2 devices, and you can directly share content from it to Facebook, Twitter, and My Opera. You can open new pages in the background tab, and there's an improved international font support for foreign languages like Arabic, Chinese, Vietnamese, and other non-Latin. So, it's an alternative to Safari, and it doesn't cost you anything. So you might want to check it out. You might like it. And again, it's called Opera Mini Web Browser. Okay, so if you're looking for a VNC software for your iPad, and VNC is basically the protocol that allows you to remotely access and view a computer remotely. And if you're looking for one, and one of the cheapest ones that I have recently got an update, and it generally has pretty good reviews. I don't use it a lot because I don't really need to do VNC remote access to my Mac at home that often. But this seems to do the trick, and it's only 99 cents. So if you're looking to sort of experiment with, having your iPad remotely hook into your work computer via VNC or your home computer, you might want to check it out. So what's new? It's been recently upgraded on May 28th to version 2.4. So it has a lot of technical enhancements. Among other things, it added support for Mac's native screen sharing authentication. So this would make it easier for you to log in. You can use your username password to connect from remoter instead of a VNC password. It added macros, separate macros for VNC, SSH, and Telnet. It added support for the latest version of Ultra VNC. It also, MS Logon now works with this version of Ultra VNC. Multi-monitor is also working in this version, so you can, if you have a multi-monitors hooked up to your computer, you can see multi-monitors. It's got it's been localized to work in the Spanish language, Italian, and German. You can also generate dynamically toolbars, only display active buttons, no Windows key for Mac or Command for Windows. There's a new menu system via popovers to eliminate clutter. There's a new full-screen exit button, which remembers its location and uses menu system to display options. Remoter now also remembers if the session was in full screen mode and will enter mode automatically on reconnect. You can also sort by sessions. You can also have VNC clipboard sharing support. And you can also have keyboard keys are now semi-transparent, not just the keyboard background. And so when you're looking at the screen, the keyboard there that floats over it is semi-transparent. There's also memory savings for VNC over SSH. It added a new optional alternative VNC encoding. It says that this is required for VNC servers that cause graphical glitches with Remoter's default encodings, such as OpenSUSE. There's new Danish keyboard mapping. So there's a lot. I mean, a lot of this is really very technical. So what I like about this is that the developers are constantly refining this VNC remote client. And again, it's only 99 cents. So if you're looking for a way to, access your Macintosh or Windows computer while you're on the road with the iPad, this 99-cent application is definitely worth the price of testing it out. So check it out. It's only 99 cents. Okay, if you're into blogging and you're using the Markdown language, you might want to check out a new app that came out on May 24th, 2011. It's $4.99, and it's called Writing Kit. Now, Markdown is essentially a very simple English language-based language for formatting blog posts. John Gruber of Daring Fireball created the language with some other people or a person a while ago. And basically, Markdown is used by a lot of people, particularly when they want to take control of how they format their blog posts. And so this writing application called Writing Kit is really, it says on its website, it's built for Markdown users and comes with a web browser for researching material. So the features are that it can use Markdown. You can use formatting tools to quickly insert headings, strong emphasized text, links, images, codes. You can browse you can use the document outline. You can browse the list of headings, images, and links in your document and jump to any of them in no time. There are font choices. You can do quick research, get instant answers, word definitions. You can use text expander snippets in the app. You have preview. You can import your plain text in Markdown documents from other apps in your computers using iTunes file sharing. You can export Markdown or HTML source to clipboard for use in your blog posts. So, this is a pretty interesting app for people who want to blog and who like using the Markdown language. In the future updates, it's going to have support for Dropbox syncing and photo uploading directly to Cloud app. So, again, I wouldn't get this if you're just a writer. I would get this if you really like the Markdown language and want to check out a utility for drafting stuff in Markdown. Okay, speaking of writing, any good writer needs a dictionary to look up, new and interesting words. Well, there's a free app that's come out from one of the, best dictionaries in the world, and that's Mirriam Webster Dictionary. And there's a free app called Mirriam Webster Dictionary HD that came out on May 25th, 2011, and it's version 1. And basically, it's a free dictionary app, and it's supported by ads. It includes voice search. It has synonyms and antonyms. It has example sentences. It has audio pronunciations of words. It has word of the day. For the iPad, it has a scrolling index that lets you browse the entire dictionary quickly, and it has recent history that lets you keep track of the words you looked up. And it goes on to say, I guess there's a disclaimer here, that your universal device ID may be used by advertisers and ad networks to serve ads to you. For more details, please link to the application licensing agreement. So look, I think this is a fair thing. I think it's fair for them to give you ads in exchange for a free and highly useful dictionary. Again, it's free. This is the future of resource tools and of dictionaries, and so you should probably download it because, again, you have nothing to lose, and if you don't like it, delete it. Okay, so if you like the Instapaper app by Marco Arment, that's the one that allows you to save articles on the web for later reading in your app on the iPhone or the iPad. Well, someone has sort of copied him, but copied him for a different purpose. And there is an app out called WatchLater App. It's all one word, WatchLater App, WatchLaterApp, by 9 Elements GmbH, and it's a $2.99 app. And basically, it's like Instapaper for video. And basically what it does is you can browse your online for video, tech talks, any sort of video production, and then you create an account to get their bookmarklet. So when you're on a website with video, you click the bookmarklet, and then you can watch the videos whenever you want on your iPad at your most convenient time. So it's a pretty unique app. It bookmarks video, and for $3, if you're a heavy video on the web watcher, you might want to check it out. It came out on May 27th, 2011, and it has a pretty decent looking interface. The real question is, what videos can't it bookmark and save later? So we'll find out the more people use this, but it could be a wave of the future. I mean, Instapaper is clearly something other people are copying. Apple's now copying Instapaper in the next version of Lion, and Apple already has something like Instapaper in the Reader button in Safari. But it's a very clever concept to do this with video. Okay, so if you're into comics and you're into making your own comics using photos, from your family, well, there has been an app for that, and that app recently got a significant upgrade that makes it more interesting. And the app is called Comic Life, and it costs $7.99. And basically, it has an upgrade to it that is interesting. The upgrade now enables full UI mirroring for the iPad 2, so you can now reflect anything from the app in either cartoons that you create on a big screen TV. They've also fixed crashes that occur during editing, and they fixed crashes when hitting undo, and easy crash reporting system. But basically, Comic Life, you import your photos, and then you can create comic photos using the comic editor in there. You can read your comics with the integrated e-reader. You can share your comics on Facebook via mail. You can send your comics to a printer. You can exchange comics with other iPads through the innovative in-tray. So I guess you can share them with other people who have the app. You can choose from full page layouts, including panels, titles, and captions. Look, so if you have a child who's a budding cartoonist and wants to make comics, this could be the app for that person. Again, it's a little pricey for an iPad app. It's $7.99, but it appears to do what it says, which is give you templates to create your own comic strips and cartoonize the photos and use comic-like fonts for the stuff that you write. So check it out. Okay, so if you're looking for a new weather app, iPad, it looks like there's one that's specifically designed for the iPad that just came out called Aelios, Aelios, for the iPad. And and it costs only $2.99 now at its launch. And what's interesting about the app is that it revolves around a dial that's in the middle. You can see different countries, but there's a dial. And if you go to their site, aeliosapp.com, there are videos that sort of show you what it can do. And it's kind of cool because you have this dial, and the dial shows the weather, and then around the video, around the dial, it shows you the temperatures at the different times of the day and at night. So it's kind of interesting. It's definitely a unique sort of weather app. I haven't seen anything like this. And for $3, it's not that expensive, and so you can see local weather, and you can you can navigate to other cities and see the weather in the other cities. Overall, it looks interesting app. It has all the information is really on this dial system, such as next 24 hours, today's, tomorrow's. So it's definitely a different type of interface. The features also include something called the Smart Location Selector, where you can instantly lock on to the most highly populated location. You also have something known as the rotational mode dial, which turns the ring to switch modes between next 24 hours and next 7 days. The features include forecasts for any place on Earth, finely crafted 24-hour virtual watch. You have day and nighttime indicators. You can explore the world quickly by simply moving and pinching the Google Maps. You have a real-time smart location selector, instantly locks into the most populated location. You can get one-touch weather using your geolocation. You have something called a weather poster, easy to read daily or weekly weather forecasts. So, for $2.99, I think there hasn't been many good weather apps on the iPad, and it's probably worth checking this out for just $2.99. Okay, so, let's say you have an iPhone or an iPad 3G. What if you wanted that to be your only iOS device? Let's say you didn't want to carry an iPhone. Could you make your iPad 3G your all-in-one device? Well, the one area that might be lacking is, you might need a phone, and the iPhone is a phone. But couldn't the iPad, particularly the iPad 3G, function as a phone? After all, it uses 3G data, and, a phone call can be made over 3G data, so why not turn it into a phone? I mean, frankly, I could do that because I do carry my iPad 2 around with me all the time, to and fro from work, and I carried it in the bag. But how could I turn it into a phone? Well, interestingly, there was a story in Cult of Mac this week that someone who's a hacker has jailbroken the iPad 2 and turned it into a phone. And basically, there's a video, and the hack is called Phone It Pad by Phone Islam, and who is behind the Facelt 3GS hack that enables FaceTime video calling on an iPhone 3GS. And let's check out the video. But in the video, it appears that this guy somehow got a phone interface on the iPad, and Cult of Mac questions how legitimate this is. But this guy seems to be doing some sort of phone calls from it. But really, is this the best way to turn your iPad into a phone? Let's go on to the next story. Okay, one method to make calls from the iPad 2 is to get the new upgraded GV Mobile Plus app from Sean Kovacs. He's the one who originally made the Google Voice app for the iPhone, and he has something called GV Mobile Plus, which it's been ported to the iPad, and it's a $2.99, and it allows you to use Google Voice on the iPad. But that doesn't mean on the iPad you can't make voice over IP calls using Google Voice through the iPad. You can instead have Google Voice call a phone number or a cell phone number or a landline to make the call. But what's interesting is I think Google GV Mobile Plus works with the voice over IP application Skype. That's the other thing. You could download Skype on the iPad, and that does make voice over IP calls over 3G on the iPad. And the GV Mobile also works with Skype, so it could be like a one-stop shop to use your Google Voice account plus your Skype account. So that's $2.99. Okay, but let's say you don't want to use Skype, that you're really set on using Google Voice on your iPad. Well, GigaOm has a nice little tutorial on May 26 on how you can do that on your iPad too. So basically, what they say is first you need a Google Voice account, which you sign up for through Google Mail, and then you want to get GV Connect as a client. Then you want to get Talkatone, because neither the Safari interface that Google offers nor GV Connect will make a voice over IP call. But if you get Talkatone, which is a free app, but it's ad supported, you can set it up so that it works with Google Voice. So here's what you do. Once you have a Google Voice account, you then go into your GV Connect account, and under Settings, set the Starts Call From setting to Google Talk. Then you enable the Call Using Talkatone setting. So in other words, if you've downloaded Talkatone, it'll recognize this in the GV Connect setting. Then you click on the telephone handset icon in the upper left corner to place a call. While you are controlling your Google Voice account from within GV Connect, the voice over IP call is actually being handled by Talkatone, according to GigaOm. So Talkatone does claim to allow calls over 3G, but the quality of the calls are dependent on the network. So how do you receive a call? To direct all your incoming calls to be received on your iPad, what you do is you go into GV Connect on your iPad and do the following. Under the settings, set the call forwarding setting to Google Talk. Make sure you're logged in your Google account in Talkatone. Wait for an incoming call. So, it's an interesting way to use Google Voice and Talkatone to actually turn your iPad into a phone that works over data. I'll save the link to GigaOm's instruction in the links for my podcast. So check it out. Okay, so after turning your iPad into a phone, why don't you turn it into a cash register, particularly if you are a business? And MacRumors reported, as many sites reported, that Square, the company that makes the little Square credit card reader, has upgraded its Square app, and the app now has something known as Square Register. Well, actually, they've announced that there's going to be a Square Register for the iPad. And basically, the Square Register application is going to allow vendors to customize the register interface with their full list of products. And the analytics tool that comes in, it will allow businesses to see up-to-the-minute details on sales performance broken down by any number of metrics to help businesses study sales trend. And the company's the functionality will come in an update to the iPad version of the company's Universal App Store app. And the Square app is free. If you don't know about Square, basically It's a company that gives you for free this little dongle. And actually, I think you can buy this square dongle in an Apple store for like $10, and then you get $10 worth of credit. And it just plugs into the audio socket, the headphone socket for your iPad or iPhone, and it basically can take credit card transactions, and they charge a small flat rate percentage that's competitive with the credit card companies, and essentially allows you to be an on-the-go vendor and turns your iPad or iPhone into a cash register. And if you have the iPad 2 with 3G connection, that means you could be out and about and use your iPad as a cash register. And I think you should check it out. If you are a small business or self-employed and have some sort of consulting or service job where you're charging customers and you're mobile, you should probably check out this Square app and the Square dongle. It's all free. It's as cheap as using these credit card companies. Okay, a while ago I mentioned how these French researchers had created this sort of app for the iPad which could simulate 3D on an iPad. And the way it would simulate it is by tracking your face. And so if you move the iPad relative to where your face is, the images on the iPad would change, and to make it look 3D like you would have these cubes out. Like if you're looking at the video version of this podcast, I'm showing you the video that's on MacRumors.com, and basically if you move around, you can sort of see 3D like in the iPad. Now what's amazing is the people who developed this have released a free demo app that shows this off, and it's called i3D Demo, and you can download it for free from the App Store. And it's a universal app. It also runs on the iPhone. And all they're doing is showing off this technology. And it gives you the app gives you various 3D-like things that you can look at, including a virtualized interface of the iPhone or the iPad that's 3D with walls, or these these sort of like swirly flat circles that are on sticks sticking up, and they seem 3D. But if you want to get a sense of this technology, it's really cool, this app, because it tracks your face. You can see a cube sort of floating around. And I think this technology is so compelling that Apple should consider buying it from them and incorporating it in future versions of the iPad, because it's very cool. Again, it's called i3D, just those three letters and number, actually 2 letters and a number, i3D. Check it out. It's free. At the very least, it's a fun parlor game. It's by Jeremy Francone and Lawrence Negay. But at a party, you whip this out and start showing this on your iPad, people are going to be pretty amazed. Okay, so if you're a big GarageBand for the iPad user and you're serious about it, and you want to use your projects on GarageBand on the Mac and maybe on programs that are more powerful than GarageBand for the Mac, well, you're in good luck, because Apple recently updated the ability to export iPad GarageBand projects to Logic Express and I guess Logic Pro. And the update improves, in addition to allowing basically the Pro apps of Logic Express and Pro to send projects to GarageBand and vice versa. So overall, it's another reason to get GarageBand for the iPad. All right, so before we wrap up the podcast, we should mention, or I should mention, another example of how people are using the iPad in business, because I think in every podcast I've talked about that, because it really is a revolutionary device and changing the way people do their jobs. Well, this week there was news that Alaska Airlines has replaced the manuals that pilots are giving with iPads. And the domestic airline is the first such company to replace its pilot's super heavy bags of printed flight reference materials with electronic copies delivered via 1.5-pound iPad. And apparently they finished winter and spring trials of the iPad replacement program for 100 of its instructor pilots and Airline Pilots Association representatives. So it really is something that looks like it's going to affect pilots. Now, PC Magazine has like a story about this, and is wondering, are we going to have problems with this? But what it's interesting is that the iPads are using actually the GoodReader app for the flight plans, and according to the article, each iPad has the GoodReader app, and it's loaded with a PDF version of 41 flight systems and performance manuals, reference cards, and other materials. This is what was in Alaska Airlines press release. And the manuals include hyperlinks and color graphics, enabling the pilots to find information faster and easier. So, I don't know. I mean, I think this makes sense. I mean, paper is just another medium, and the iPad is pretty stable, and that battery lasts a long time. And so, I think this makes sense. I think you're going to see more enterprise users using the iPad in this sort of innovative way. Okay, thanks for listening to episode 56 of the iPad podcast. This is Lex at maxfuture.com. This is the Memorial Day weekend, May 29th. This was episode 56, which I'm going to call it the back to school sale episode, because I want everyone to get into that mind frame. And if you don't have an iPad, to get one, because it's such a great device. Once again, if you have any comments, you can always email me at maxfuture@gmail.com or leave a voicemail at 617-826-9676. Any positive feedback in the iTunes store would be very helpful to getting the word out on this commercial-free, chit-chat-free podcast. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.